So, excuse me if I'm a bit too static on the platform. As you can see, I currently walk with the speed of light. So, yeah, I'm really glad to see you all, and thank you for having me. I will be talking about something that's really on my heart, and it's been on my heart for a long time, and it's putting people first. And why that actually helps you have more money and have higher revenues. And today I'll be walking you through a more design and UI and UX road, but you should definitely apply this tactic, logic to everything you do and the whole part of the process, the development process. And I will talk about, as Serge mentioned, a bit about our company. So UX and UI is our bread and butter, as we always say. And we have, with over 150 projects behind our belts, I could say we're okay in it, in creating experiences. And we know that putting users in the center of our work is what actually drives success. And yeah, a bit about myself. This might seem a bit too egocentric, but I will tell you why I talk about myself so much. So my whole life I've been revolving around people and putting people in the center. So I started off in the more medical field, in the physiotherapy. And there, if you want to solve the problem of the patient, you need to understand the patient, you need to ask questions. You need to go deep inside the core of what the injury is. It's not only on protocol that you just have these exercises, you have these treatments, and then the patient is okay. It's more complex. You need to understand their pains. And this really, really connects with the UX work that I had in my recent years, because I switched to UX design, and the concept didn't change. So I figured this is something that's important. People are at the core of our success. People are at the core of what we do. And currently I'm an executive producer in PUNCHev, and the concept still stands. People need to be in the center. The customers, the team, the connection between them, understanding them is really, really important. So these are some of the companies that trusted us, and we've put them in the center, and we've had some great successful projects together. So, enough about the overall stuff. I will go into some boring data. And this is, you can see, this is the McKinsey Design Index. And shortly, this is a tool that rates companies by how strong they perform in the design and how that correlates with financial performance. And in the graphs, you can see that companies with top quartile McKinsey Design Index scores outperform the industry benchmarks with as much as 2-to-1, which is awesome. And also, according to Adobe, companies with strong design outperform companies with good design with 290% on the S&P Index, which is quite a lot over the span of 10 years. So this tells us that putting design, putting people in the center is something that's important. And the main things that we'll be covering today are what is actually user-centric design, how we can gather, implement the data from the users, some strategies for UI and UX in order to engage players, and how we can monetize through the design. So, what is the concept of user-centered design? It's a really dynamic approach. It revolves around the user, the player. They are in the center of each step, and each step is collaborative. Each step is iterative. As you can see, we've put 4 main stages. They could be called in different way, but the core principle is we need to understand what is the context. Why do we need it? Why does this product or this game, why it should be created? And when we understand this, we go to the requirements. What do players require within this product? What do players require within the game? What would they like? What would they need? And after understanding these, we go to the design. And this is important because we're laying the foundation. If we go straight to the design without understanding the needs, then we might be starting over and starting over and starting over, and we might not have the success that we think that we might have. After designing things, we should evaluate, and this requires, again, the users, the testers themselves. If we test it and we did not understand the context, then we go back to square one and we iterate. We think, why didn't it work the first time? And then we go back throughout the whole process. And then we can go from the evaluation to the user requirements or to the designing. It really depends on the feedback that we get from people. This is really important because, after all, people are going to use the product. And if it's not usable for them, then it's not useful. And in the context of user-centered design within gaming is that through research, through analysis, we reduce the obstacles of fun. Games are supposed to be fun, and there are some obstacles. The interface is a potential obstacle if it's too complex, if it's too in your face, and it shouldn't be the focal point. Good interface is something that's not visible to the naked eye. And we should be creating an adaptive difficulty in comparison to apps where you need to go from point A to point B quickly. Games should be a bit challenging, otherwise they will not be fun. That doesn't mean the interface should be challenging. Please don't make challenging interfaces. And the interface should be intuitive. It should test through good practices in the industry. And we need to tell a story through our designs, through our work. It should be something that people can dive in, they can go inside and see this new world that they crave and they want to go back to every day. Also creating multiplayer experiences. If multiplayer is hard for people to engage in, if it's difficult to find your buddy in the lobby, if the experience is not great, then people will definitely not stick to your game. Why is it important? Like I said, it enhances the player engagement. Players engage more to something that they like, which is natural, and they're something that they're actually satisfied. And this increases the retention and puts the product in a competitive advantage with the other competitors. And due to its uniqueness, because games they're different. Many games are unique in their concept, unique in their ideas. The players are the main effective way to see if something works or not. So this is a small example of our portfolio. On the top, number one, you can see that icons, text, they're all over the place. It's a bit chaotic. And you don't understand what's happening. You can't read a lot of the things. And with just small rearrangements through the wireframe at the bottom, you can see that everything is quite easy to scan. You can understand what is what, and this really helps with the experience, because put yourselves in the first situation where you don't see the information that should be seen. You don't see the characters, you don't see your teammates, and so on. So how can we actually get the so valuable information from the users? These are some effective techniques, which is surveys. These are a low-hanging fruit. They can be started at the beginning stages of a conceptualization. You can gather a lot of info, and this is not so in-depth, but it could help you with the direction. Focus groups is another very important thing. People who actually share common interests, share common ideas about the game. Gameplay data, of course, data is important, and it gives us a good idea if we're going in the right direction or not. Playtesting, we can see, playtesting can be done through, of course, live playtesting or recorded. Of course, live playtesting, you can see the expressions of the players, you can see their reactions, where they struggle, where you can improve. And forums and reviews are something that's really important, because usually they are places where people know the product, want the best for the product, because they want to be using the product. So we quite often, when we collaborate with companies, we tell them, do you have huge forums? Do you have reviews where you can actually gather data from current players, because they're the most important part of the success of your new expansion of the new asset that you're adding to the game. And you can see here, this is another game that we did. This is an onboarding. This is just a small excerpt of the flow we created, we improved. Actually, for the onboarding, Volcanoids is a survival FPS, and it revolves around this island where you have this volcano and you have a timer. And when the timer ticks, the volcano explodes, and then if you're not hidden, then it's game over. But the onboarding was quite, it didn't explain it, the concept. You just landed on the island, players were confused, why are they getting this pickaxe? What is this for? And then they didn't see the timer that was ticking, and it was quite over before they understood that the volcano is going to erupt. So we really, through the onboarding, through the tutorial, we created something that's immersive, something that's not by the side that you need to just finish in order to play the game. But we created a concept around every tool that you get during the onboarding, why it's needed, why it's important. We also, through different stages, we introduced through chunking of the information, we introduced new concepts so that players could actually understand with easily what is needed for them to do and why they should hide from the volcano, essentially. So, again, player feedback is really important, but there should be a balance, because after all, if we don't have the creative spark, if we don't create something, then players would not have anything to feedback on. So there should be a balance between. And we need to try to create something that's unique, something that's great, that's something that actually draws players' attention, and they will be, their role is to determine whether the design, whether the idea is too complex or too plain. So the balance is really important. So, some strategies. Onboarding, like I mentioned, it's really, really important. It's a huge problem and a sticking point if done correctly. Optimizing it will keep a huge percentage of new players to the game. Usually that's where it's most crucial. If players don't like the game from the beginning, then they will not stick and see the great concepts that actually are within it. They will not give it a try. And we need to engage them and immerse them in the game and in the onboarding as well. Onboarding shouldn't be something that's boring and created just to give players some info about the game so that they could actually play the game. Onboarding should be a part, huge part of the game itself. And we need to get the feedback and to bring feedback to the players. What are they doing? Why are they doing this? What's happening when they are completing the tasks that were given to them, for them to understand and have clarity on what they're doing actually. And they should be actively involved in the tutorial. They shouldn't be just readers. You give them just a text of the things that they should be memorizing, the buttons that they should be memorizing, the combos and everything. They should be actively involved through practical scenarios within the game in order to complete the tutorial. Again, an example. Here, context is really important. Number 2 is the original game. And number 1 is what we did in terms of revamp, redesign. So, this is a manager's football game, and if the idea is to help older players who are used to the interface, then probably changing the visuals of the interface would not be needed, because they're okay, they know where the buttons are, where the menus are. But in this case, our collaborators wanted to onboard new players and help them understand actually about the game, and as you can see, the original design is quite cluttered. You don't see the interactive from the non-interactive components. You don't see anything, you just see a whole screen of information. This is just the main screen. If you can see the lists of the football players, then you will be totally overwhelmed. So we thought, how can we make it as seamless as possible while actually making it more sportsy, more appealing to new players? So we decided that we will separate totally the interactive from non-interactive components through contrast, through colors. The greens, you can definitely see which thing can be clicked and which not. Also, we added a bit more concepts around the football. So the ball is something that's in the main menu underneath. And things like that, understanding first the concept, why it's needed, what the game should actually involve, understanding the needs of the players, which are the new players who are not used to this cluttered design, is really crucial for the success of the project, actually. And some small changes actually can make a lot of difference based on the context. Again, if we are talking about a mobile, we can say safely that the majority of people are right-handed. So interactive components on the right hand are something that's natural for a mobile design. But if we talk about PC or console, then we should take into account the scanning way. So we scan from left to right. The majority of countries and people scan from left to right, so making the menus and interactions from left to right would be more intuitive for these types of platforms. So small changes like these, they at first don't seem as important, could make a huge difference in the player satisfaction and the retention afterwards. So how can we monetize through user-centered design? Like I said, happy players are willing to spend players. The happier they are, the more willing they are to spend more time in the game and also spend money. So we need to create something that's enjoyable for people. And this should be the center of our ideas and our success strategies. Because if we go with financial success first, then probably we are missing the point. Because success comes from people, and if there are no people, then there will not be any success. So, like I said, player-centric design, one of the most important ways of ethical monetization tactics. The value for money. We shouldn't rip people off. We should bring into the store materials which are worth the money we are asking for, actually. We shouldn't overprice things, because if we are correct with the players, then they will be happy and they will eventually spend more than if we boost the prices for skins or the prices for assets. And we should always gather feedback from the community. If something is not liked, we should definitely take it into account if it's the majority's choice. So really important. And lastly, I would say that the easier you make the interface, the easier you make the experience through the menus, the easier the players will find their way to the cart, and they will be more prone to finish the purchase. So, let's conclude. User-centered design. This is the strategy of prioritizing people first and putting them in every step of the process. And this is really, really crucial for their satisfaction. And satisfaction and engagement lead to higher revenues. Some of the good techniques for gathering the data, whether they're satisfied or not, are surveys, focus groups, gameplay data, playtesting, forums, and reviews. There are more, but these are the main points. So, thank you very much for your time.